Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 89th episode of the HSBG podcast. I'm your host, Educatedcollins, and I'm here with my constant co-host, Shady Bunny. How you doing today?
Overall, I'm well, cons, but yeah, some somber news today. Where how are you doing?
I'm doing all right as well. Definitely, this is gonna be a feelings episode. I think we're gonna get our emotions out, but overall, we still have the daily. How was your week? How was your week, Shady? Da da da.
So it's been what 3 days of the new
Yeah,
patch, I
it's been
think,
3 days.
roughly. Yeah. So I guess we have a 3-day week for the purpose of this
Right,
discussion, and
right.
yeah, all right. My day one was like 12 hours, but I didn't sleep a lot before, so it just feels like just some haze of I played cards. Some games were won, most of them were not. And like the second day I slept and I was like, oh wow, I could actually like
Think
think and
about it.
strategize. And yeah, that was very fun. And I will say that there was a huge mindset meta shift for me. I don't think we'll be getting into the nitty gritty just yet, right? Because we got some
Right.
meta discussion later on. But let's just say that the stuff I was playing on day one was not the stuff I was playing on day two and three. So how about you?
Well, I played the games. I won some. I lost some. Undeads were in every one of them. I, however, won some games without undead. So that was pretty cool. I was like, wait a minute, I can do this. Every game where Putricide was 8 was a victory to me. That was a small mini mission I had to kill the Putricide. Well, now it's it's less so, but still they can still do some weird stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, definitely you can feel the evolution. Obviously, we're not going to go deep into stuff, but I definitely think there are some problematic non-undead cards that are not going to get addressed completely yeah, until like the undead's getting nerfed, and then like, oh, they're like, well, this card is a problem, and then I'll be like, yes, it is. We knew that already, but
100%.
it's not
Yeah,
gonna
it's
get touched.
funny. It's funny if we'll be talking about the same cards. I guess we will. Yeah.
Mm. But yeah,
But stay tuned for that, guys. We'll keep the gameplay discussion for the second half of the program.
yeah. But this overall, this podcast will be deep diving into the announcement made for me yesterday for Shady, like he saw in the morning, where they have revealed the 2023 esports plans, and I think it's good to just kind of read through it ourselves, discuss it, see how it feels. Right, I think me and Shady are coming from slightly different perspectives, where I'm definitely more competitor, monetary driven, like da da da. Like, do I how does this change me? And then Shady's like, oh, content, making sure you see other people and see the competitors and the great players from around the world, that kind of thing, and like competing in a high stakes tournament, that kind of thing. Monetary value aside, yeah, that kind of. So, definitely love to see our discussion and what we both think about these new. Just kind of going to go over it. Are you ready for the 10th year of competitive Hearthstone? This year is going to be a bit different from the previous few. Let's get into what's coming to Hearthstone Esports. Heading into the 2023 season, we've been evaluating the state of our competitive program and the best format for it to take moving forward. Last fall, we began thinking about settling Hearthstone Esports up for sustainability as it turns a decade old, balancing the realities of the ever-changing production landscape, sizing the program according to its audience, and finding the most direct path forward for players to compete. Even though the 2023 program is smaller, this year is poised to bring another exciting year of competitive Hearthstones with players from across the globe, except for China, showcasing their skills to earn prizing and join the Hall of Champions. This year, we're going to see a total of 7 events, 3 Master Tour Season Championships leading into the 2023 World Championship, as well as 3 standalone Battlegrounds, Lobby Legends tournaments, all broadcast on YouTube and Twitch. Qualifying for each event will take place through their respective lives across a 3-month season. Each Masters Tour and Lobby Legends will feature 16 of the top ladder players based on competitive points earned through monthly standings. These top 4 point earners in each region will receive invites, followed by the top 4 total point earners, regardless of region that had not yet received an invite. So that's a lot to take in. I want to kind of rephrase and make it like a TLDR, easy digestible. So
Yeah.
2023 program is going to be smaller. They said that from the Franco. In terms of constructed, they're going to have 3 Master Tour championships and then a World Championship. And for BGs, we're going to have 3 standalone BG Lobby Legends tournaments, all on Twitch and YouTube. And they're going to be based on ladder play and the competitive points you've earned through monthly standings. So through the end of the month, you're going to get some points based on your standings at that month, and then those points will add up, and that will determine how you make it into the finals or the prize tournament. So, any thoughts on that so far? Just looking at it, just any thoughts before we go into the nitty gritty details? Just like getting a smaller thing. It's only three tournaments of 9, and it's only going to be for competitive play. It's hard, right? Because you kind of have to hear the whole thing before we start really discussing. So maybe it's best to like.
Well, I mean, the initial take is that downsizing almost never feels good, and it's almost never a good sign. So, I think that's the initial take when you're asking me about what's the general feeling after that introduction.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I did review this on the stream like right when it came out, and I was just kind of like immediately responding to every sentence, basically. That kind of thing. Like, oh, I read this. And this is what it actually means.
Yeah. Okay.
And it definitely felt that way, where they were just kind of setting you up for disappointment, I guess. Where each sentence is really like, we have something, but it's not what you're used to, and it's going to be a little bit less than what you're expecting. I do think we do have to kind of read the whole qualifications before we get through it. So
I mean, I guess I could do that one, sure.
Okay.
So do you want to go over the point structure as well?
Yeah, we can go over the point structure.
So we'll talk about the implications of this, but essentially so there was a tweet that announced that instead of top 16 mattering, top 100 would matter.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it afterwards. So the point structure right now is that if you're number 1 in your region, you receive 8 points, 2 to 5, 7 points, 6 to 10, 6 points, 11 to 25 points, and then just drops down by 1 point every time. You have like 21 to 30, 31 to 40, 41 to 50, and then 51 to 100 for 1 point. So that is over a 3-month period, as Collins said. And then after those 3 months, they total all your points, and the top 4 per region qualify. And then the standalone 4 people that have the most points that weren't in that top 4 will also receive that. So I guess I'm not sure if theoretically they can all be from the same server. I guess probably not. Right?
It's going to be very difficult for that to be the case, right?
Yeah, because it's just not enough points then, right? Because like other people qualified, so it's probably like 2 from one server and then 1
from the other,
right?
Exactly.
So probably at most we'll see 6 players from the same region qualify. But yeah, we'll look at the details once we have the first qualification behind us. So there'll be a January-March season. There'll be a April-June season and July-September. So that's the same thing every time. 3 months of qualification, ladder, and then at the end of that 3-month period, total the points and see which 16 players qualify. Each Lobby Legends event will still have a $50,000 prize pool. So the individual event did not get cut down, but we went from a $500,000 over 10 events to now $150,000 over 3 events, I believe.
It was over 9 events because the last one was
right. I think planned was 10 or so, but then with the China, that's speculation. But yes, we did have 9 events last year. That's correct. Now, There is a mention here that the total prize pool is 500 USD, but that is 500,000, but that is for constructed as well, I believe, right?
Yes, Constructed's World Championship will have a
Yeah,
$500,000
exactly.
prize.
So for Lobby Legends, we are just talking the 50,000 per tournament,
Yeah.
and that's it. And then there's some more FAQ, but I'd say we discuss first, and we can get
Yes.
into the FAQ
Yeah,
later.
yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure.
That's more like a treat at the end. The FAQ. That's dessert. We can save that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously, my initial reaction was this is pretty bad. But we did know, so we did know things were going to change, but we just didn't know exactly what the details are, what the qualifying period was, that kind of thing. So it always feels bad, like once again, when you go to human psychology, to take away something that people had. I always say that's a no, ever, never do this. Never give somebody something and then take it away. It always it sparks visceral rage or so, or at least emotions. It sparks emotions for sure. So, um, this is definitely you know an announcement that's not gonna have positive reception, right? They're especially competitive players. They're used to getting this type of pricing and being able to plan for that, this, and now really you can't with good conscience plan like, oh, I'll participate in this tournament, and then you know if it doesn't work out, it's fine, I'll just participate in that yeah, you can't really do that this year here, because the tournaments are so spread apart, and especially for constructed players, you're not making any money the year until the
Yeah.
end of the year, right? So let's say you were like paying for rent, like this is a random example, right? But like you can't be like, oh, there's a championship at the end of the year, I'll just pay everything then,
It's eight players only that are in
Yeah,
the money, I believe,
right,
right?
right, as well, and the especially for constructed um the pool of players that even get any pricing is so small compared to the pool of players that want to compete, right? Like only 8 players making it in. For Lobby Legends, you are getting 16 players every 3 months. You're gonna end up with 48 players, right? Obviously, there's gonna be repeats, so maybe like 30 players, 40, or so. But it's still higher than constructed, where you're really getting just a very very small pool of people who are getting good money, right? You're getting 500,000 split it among 8 people essentially, right? Which is
50,000.
it's 500,000
Oh, you're talking constructed
for
now.
yeah, for
Okay.
constructed,
I
yeah,
thought you were. I thought. Yeah, of course. That's the real.
yeah,
I
but
thought you were the BGs. But yeah, it is such a. It's very volatile, I
yeah,
guess.
it's very top heavy. But for BGs, as you said, right, it's more, you get 16 split among 50,000, uh, which is more people. It's still just not a lot though, right? And overall, it's just like not great news, right? I think we can kind of skip over the constructed. Maybe we'll come back to it a little bit, right? But we're
Yeah,
a
this is
BG
not a
podcast, so let's just
podcast,
kind of focus on
exactly.
that. And it's just a little bit of a letdown, I guess, where we've really only had BG Esports for a year, right? Like it was just last year that was really when it
Yeah,
started, and immediately it's getting like kicked in the face, right? There,
got it. Essentially, yeah.
yeah,
Just
and there's no you know I do understand like the viewership wasn't like super great for the tournament system. Like we were like it was nowhere compared to the heydays of Hearthstone, like uh years ago, where you were getting 100,000 concurrents. Right now it's a little bit less, and um but it's still bad to have such a massive drop off from year to year, right? It's definitely not a good sign. Like even if things were going badly, you don't cut it like this. You don't just say, let's just I mean it's not Heroes of the Storm level treatment, right? Where they just kind of overnight cut everything, but it's still very telling for the future where um what does this mean for 2024 and things like that, but just the initial impression is just not very good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot here,
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot here.
We just gotta get started, I suppose, and then
Hmm.
we'll see where we end up. So something that came to mind here, because there's a lot of angles you can take on this, and like okay, it's for this reason, it's for that reason. So I mean, the obvious one, like you mentioned, the viewership is less, and it's most likely just not a good business decision for them to invest in the esports, or at least that's what it looks like from where they're standing. Something, right, that comes to mind for me here is that for me, it almost doesn't even matter too much how much money there is, as just so disappointing at how bad the structure
The
is.
structures, yeah, you
Yeah,
could really
because
talk about that's so true, right?
for sure we can do so much. I'm gonna finish my thought on
Okay,
this
yeah,
one
yeah.
because and then we can pick it apart however we want to. So we can argue that they maybe came out of the gate a little bit too strong last year,
Mm.
because it felt a little wasted. I think even competitors were like, "Oh, I don't know, man, that's $500,000 for this shit, right?" So because it felt so underutilized, right? The qualifiers were not broadcast. Like streamers could do it, but half an hour delay. There was no way to keep up with the score, no hype around it, no nothing. I think that was a general sentiment on the player base was you guys are kind of wasting this money, right? Like, come on, like had we invested a little bit more time and effort and planning, this could have been a much more exciting experience. Instead, we said it many times on the podcast, it felt like just rush, 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 cut it down to 16 players, and then ship it. And like that whole journey, that whole qualification, that could have been so much more content, so much more value. Had it been, like I wouldn't even care if they took out some of the prize money right ahead of time and be like, okay, well, we were planning on doing this much prize money, but let's, take out 5 grand or 10 grand, however much they need per production to say, okay, let's make it proper. Let's make sure we have enough admins. Let's make sure we have proper coverage on the qualifiers. Let's make it so that we don't have to have half an hour delay, or however they want to do it, like prevent the people from streaming, but then have a great main cast, like whatever. So that's one thing. That's a foundation I want to lay right to talk about, because we can absolutely argue that they came out of the gate a little bit too strong, a little bit too much money just thrown at it and said, come on, money, do something, instead of, setting it up a little bit better. But that can happen, right? Like you can make those decisions and say, okay, well, we're a little bit too rash. We rushed in without the proper preparation. And now it suddenly doesn't look like it's a great business decision. I would be super thrilled if they just be honest about it and say, look, guys, the way it looks right now, we can't give you that much money. We just can't, the business decision, right? We can't do it. But we're going to take this 150,000 pool that they have right now. We're going to chunk it in much smaller bits, but we're going to give you awesome tournaments. We're going to give you a lot of cover. And honestly, you guys would be playing anyway. So just let's, we were speculating, right, about like the top 100 mattering and then getting these giga tournaments with lots of hype and excitement. And even if you play and it's the same structure where you got to make it all the way to the top 16 to be in the money, at least you were in that big tournament. You got to play against a lot of the big names. If you weren't like a super high level competitor, you qualified with top 100 that month or whatnot. We talked about how maybe there would be a seeding effect where, let's say, you were top 16, you'd get like 2 buys or so at the start of that big tournament, and then the top 100 guy wouldn't get any buys, it'd get worse seeding, etc. But none of that, right? So essentially, that's what I would have loved to have seen. Them just saying like, look, what we didn't work. We threw a lot of money at this shit, too much money, and now we got to cut it down. 150,000 is our budget. But we're going to give you guys a great experience. Yes, there's going to be a lot less prize money, but there's still going to be a nice bonus for you guys playing the game you love to play. Because, winning one of these things would still, be very nice, right? It'd still be very nice to win that if you have to use that 150,000 split it into, I don't know how much you have to do for, like you could do it 6 tournaments, right? You could do like a 2-month qualification. You wouldn't have to be 10, however thin you could stretch it and still have a reasonable cookie at the end, right, for the winner. That I would have loved. This really feels like we're just going to downsize and we're basically going to keep it somewhat the same system. I do really want to talk about the points, but I want to give it over to you first. Sort of like, maybe talk about this a little bit more, about how, maybe it was a little bit too much, bit too strong last year. And then, this year, like such a drastic change.
Yeah, I guess in terms of like how they have changed the competitive system, I guess it feels lazy. If I were to put it into words, where they had the final tournament, right, and they were happy with that product, but they weren't really happy with anything else. They're just like, let's just have that final tournament, and like the rest of the whole qualifications doesn't really matter. Let's just get people there, like somehow. Okay, we'll just put it in ladder play. There's no tournament play to get players. It's all just ladder, right? Like there's no other way for you to make it in or to participate in any esports this year, except for the Master Source. But like for BGs, right, it's only play ladder well, play ladder a lot. And it even stings because of how the way the point system sets up. It doesn't even feel particularly fair for this first month, and this first month's gonna be very important, right? So it's both lazy and then like not really respecting the players. Like you gotta tell, like, first of all, if this first month is this important, you don't give them 2 weeks to figure, to grind this. But then you tell them ahead of time as well, like, let them know, like, oh, from day one, I really need to be like playing every day, because this first month, if you don't do well this first month, you're kind of out of it for this first season, and that's 3 months of the year.
Let's also lay that out a little bit, where this is not going to be an isolated event. There's going to be another MMR reset within the next 3 months as well, within the next 3-month session as well. Right. And I doubt that MMR reset will be clean at the start of the month.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, this is not going to be like, oh, just the first one is scuffed. Probably all of them are going to be scuffed.
All the first ones are going to be
really so essentially, guys, like, because Collins and I have been thinking and talking about this already, but to get a little bit in our brains, right, to see how we think about this. So let's first look at the point structure.
Yeah, we have to talk about that.
It's complete BS. You can delete the whole second column.
You really can.
And I'm really not, like, you can almost delete the rank 11 to 20 as well. But, let's just delete the second column. And the only thing that matters is rank 20 to rank 1. Mm-hmm. And here's why. Essentially, we're talking, if you want to have a likely qualification, top 4, kind of top 5, right? We talked about it. There's probably going to be one person from each region. So let's just top 5. So if you are not consistently within the top 5 of your region, you are not going to be qualifying. Mm-hmm. And you may not be familiar with the leaderboards the way Collins and I are, but obviously when you grind this much for Lobby Legends, you keep track of that thing. You know which names are there. You know the dynamic. And rank 1 does not really drop out of the top 5 unless some serious shit is happening. But even if that would happen, like, just gaining 1 point or 2 points is never going to offset just how many points that you missed out on, right? Like, it's just like, it's never going to happen. Like, you're never going to have the rank 1 stumble all the way to like the second page. Yeah. Because that's sort of what would need to happen, right? Like, that person would have to take so much damage that they'd be out of the running, or, one of the rank 2 to 5. So that club of top 5 players, they might switch a little bit in between each other, and maybe like number 5 drops to 6, number 4 drops to 7, like maybe. But that's really about the extent. They're gonna like move into the top 10, maybe. So you're talking about this very, very small group of players that are going to be eligible. Now, on top of that, something Collins brings up is this 2-week period we have right now. So Blizzard announced like, hey, top 100 is going to matter. So they did say that you needed to play well in January. But see, the problem with the way how this is laid out is if you mess up 1 month, it's over. You have no chance. Like if you are not at the very, 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 very minimum in the top 20, but very likely in the top 10, it is not relevant what you do in the 2 other months. And it's unlikely that you're just going to grab rank 1 as well, right? Like if you didn't have it right now, it's like, like I'll just catch up by getting that 1 extra point by being first place. Let's be honest, that's not happening. So what happens in these very chaotic 2 weeks is you have a new meta. It's very imbalanced. There's going to be it's a shit show at the first few days with Putricide doing some crazy shit, etc. Nobody knows what's going on. What does that incentivize? 24-hour streams, 24-hour grinding sessions. Because once you know what works, you exploit that to the max, and you're just like farm, and you just pull ahead. So if you have to be very good as well, of course. This is not just play 24 hours as a noob. That's not going to work, right? You're talking the best in the world that are committed to playing like the 18 hour, let's say at minimum 18 hours session.
Tyler.
Yeah, like Tyler, Matsuri,
those people.
There's a lot of long sessions as well. So those players, they're eligible, and everyone else is not, because you're not going to catch them within a 2-week period. The ladder hasn't slowed down enough. It hasn't stabilized enough. So if for that 2-week period you aren't willing to go completely crazy, right, in a way, sacrifice your health a little bit and clear your schedule and just say, I'm going to go insane on those first few days, because it's all about exploiting the lack of knowledge on the other side. You're fighting a lot of people who haven't played as much as you, and you, because of your volume of games, you just learn, you get all the tips and tricks, and you just exploit, and you get this like insane point lead. And normally that doesn't really matter so much, because the ladder stabilizes, everybody gets to know what's strong and what's not, and the next month all the other stronger players, they kind of catch up, because you now no longer have that informational advantage. Your grinding session is actually going to probably be a little bit harmful, because all that time you're going to like lose focus, and then once the points get a little bit more far away, right, from the rest, a loss is going to really hurt you. So like you probably don't want to be doing 24 hours, and then like at the end you 2 top 8s, you're like, oh man, I messed up my session. But at the start, 1 top 8 doesn't fucking matter, right? You're like 8K internal like everyone else. You get 1 first place, that thing is gone, expunged off the record. So you can do that at the start. You can just do volume, and that's really what we're talking about, where this 2-week period, it's quite likely that that's going to be recurring, because for this to not recur, the next qualification would have to fall the next 3 months, right? The MMR reset would have to fall like at the start of the month. Right, and we know that Blizzard doesn't plan around that.
That would be April 4th.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the quickest they could do it, April 4th.
And it's possible, right? But it's still, as Collins mentions, like it's a slap in the face that like you're gonna have all this bad news, and then on top of that, you're gonna say, by the way, this really, really exclusive thing, we're gonna make it even more exclusive, because only the top grinders are gonna have a shot at the first 2 weeks. And if you don't do well in the first 2 weeks, you're eliminated for the next 3 months, essentially. Well, the next 2 months. And that's a really crappy feeling, that even though it was very unlikely, at least people that didn't play a ton but were still capable of getting into the top 5, they now are also eliminated. And it's just the very, very, very skilled people that are also willing to put up an insane grind. Yeah, so that's why I said, like, just a little clarification to bring people into our minds as to how we think about that.
Yeah, so basically, right, like the grinders get this huge lead, and even if you're not a grinder, you basically have to be a grinder, because like if you get like rank 21, I would say you're out of it, right? Like you're like 4 points is not you can't catch up right? Because let's say you next month you get second, right? Like you go from 21 to second, right? You now have 11 points, right? The person that stayed in like third place, he has 14. The person that stayed that was like sixth and sixth, he has more points than you. He has 12 points. You have 11. So you're still behind all of those players essentially. Like anyone ranked 10 and up that stayed ranked 10 and up above you, you're behind all of those players and you can't really catch up. Like it's 1 point difference, right? Like you can't catch up. So just getting 20, like just being ranked 21 for the first month, you're already out of the running, like realistically, because they're only pulling the top 5 people. Essentially it's top 4, but it's 16 people over 3 regions, right?
And,
If you look at the
and
points,
even then, right? Like you're saying rank 21, you're out. Yeah, I would even say rank 11, you're at a massive disadvantage.
if you're rank 11, you have to be rank 1 next month. Like that's the
Pretty
problem too.
much, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So massive disadvantage. So that's why I said, like, realistically, it's basically, do you get top 10
yeah,
this 2 weeks? If you don't get top 10 in the 2 weeks, your chances are extremely slim.
yeah. I mean that's the like the realism answer. Like top 21 doesn't matter, top 11 doesn't matter either.
Yeah,
It's really just top 6. And
but we have to call it as it is, right? Yeah.
and
Well,
if you're
top 10. Well, top 10, right? So 6 to 10.
yeah,
Yeah.
and if you're top 10, you're still fighting for your life, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
you have to make sure that you're moving up into the top 6 and staying there for the next 2 months, right? Because a lot of like on average, like realistically, what's gonna happen? Rank 1 is always gonna make it, right? Like because they're grinders, they're good, they're gonna stay. They'll make sure they're a top rank 2, right? And then the rank 2 to the 5, right? They're gonna be comfortable too. They're gonna make sure that they stay there. Obviously, one of those people are gonna falter, right? Like yeah, or maybe 2 if you're lucky, but one of those people are falter, and then 1 or 2 people that are consistently ranked 6 to 10 are gonna move up and then take that rank 2 to 5 spot. And then you're gonna get 5 players, like 4 of them were like rank 1 to 5 in the first month, and then you're gonna get like 1 person that was ranked 6 to 10 in that first month, and then that's where you're gonna get the 5 players basically. So it's really gonna be hard for someone that ended rank 11 in that first month to end up going into the qualifiers. uh it's the point structure doesn't really allow for it at all. So it's just a very like limiting factor, and especially since this first month is so important. Like if you do poorly in this first month, you're kind of done. Like there's no reason really to try. If you're like
You
rank
are,
30,
yeah. You're not
yeah.
just kind of over
If you're like rank 30 this first month, you could give up. Like honestly, like the reality of the situation is you're not going to recover, and overpass everyone except for 4, like or 4 people in the next 2 months. It's really not like, even like let's say you get rank 31, right? And you get 3 points, and the next 2 months you get first, like legitimately you get first, right? You get 19 points overall, right? As a total. If a person gets second, like fifth, sixth, they beat you, right? Even if they get like sixth, and then they were first the first month, they beat you.
Yeah.
If they get sixth, and then they were second, they tie with you, right? So it's rough. You actually get in due to the tiebreaker since you got first twice in a row, but like this scenario is so rare.
Well, realistically, right, after the first 2 weeks, you're gonna have 10, maybe like 12 or 13 people that will still be trying.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Or some people who might still try but haven't done the math yet, right? But
Right.
you're gonna have about, let's say 10 and then a few extras
Right.
that might say, because essentially, if you're not part of those first 10 in the first 2 weeks, you're kind of like gunning for rank 1 to like cover that 1 point.
Yeah, you have to.
Which is ridiculous. But there's some people that can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, right. So let's just say you have those 10, and then maybe XQN finishes 11th, and he's like, all right, whatever, I gotta get the 2 firsts.
Right,
Fine,
right,
I'll make it happen. So, we'll throw in like 2 extra slots for those crazy players. But that isn't that is very depressing that after 2 weeks, you've eliminated like essentially
The whole
all the
player base,
competition.
yeah.
It's 12 people for the next 2 months, and then over that next month, if any of those 12 have a bad month, they just drop off, and it's gonna be like for the last month, it's gonna be like 7 people or 8 people that are relevant. For the MMR to be relevant at all, which is ridiculous to say that after 2 weeks, you're gonna have 12 people for who MMR is relevant. For everyone else, it's just a fucking number, makes you feel good about it. And that is true. That was true for a lot of people before this, but at least there was this idea of, man, if I have a really good month, I can sneak into the top 16, right? I've been top 50 and stuff. You still had way more people for who there was that dream, right? And that is all you need. Like, and I see this as well, right? Because I coach people, and some people take my coaching and they're like, okay, I think I've got a shot, right? And they're actually very, very high ranked, very, very good players. And this feels so bad because I know that they look at this and they're like, what is the point? Right? This is so damn exclusive that I cannot even begin to try. And that is depressing, where before you have a player that was capable of getting into the top 50, that is within the realm of possibilities for them to sneak into the top 16 for 1 month, right? That was possible.
Right.
This is impossible. They do, well, I don't want to say fully impossible because obviously you can hone your skills, keep practicing, keep training, but in 2 weeks, it's not possible. So, right. So, realistically speaking, you're just eliminated and you've just shattered so many dreams. And that's the problem where, yeah, it was already exclusive, but at least there was hope for a lot of people. And that hope keeps them playing and trying and being like,
Improving,
oh
yeah.
man, it's so awesome. And I'm watching the streamers and I'm getting better. And right now, you really cultivate that feeling of, what is the point? I'm not going to be top 5 anyway. What is the point?
Yeah.
And
So
that is not a good feeling at
and
all.
it really does feel bad because you thought a top 100 mattered, like we
Yeah,
did, like, right.
exactly. Right. You go in with the complete opposite idea. You go in thinking, oh, right, they're improving it.
Right.
I mean, that makes sense, right? They're getting more experience. Last year was a bit exclusive. Right
Right.
now, they're going to stretch it to the top 100. And then you get this like gut punch where it's like, no, sorry, it's basically like the top 5 that matters. Top 10, sort of. Top 5 mainly. And that's ridiculous. Yeah. But whatever. We don't have to keep going on about that particular thing. But yeah, I go back to my point at the very start. It's like, it did not need to be this way. And I also want to make it very, very, very clear that this is extremely likely something pushed purely from, like, maybe we don't want to call it management, right? But just whoever calls the shots in terms of budget, because I know that there's a lot of passionate people
Right. Of course.
working. Like, for instance, a bar, right, is sort of the person in charge, I guess, for competitive, but not in charge of the budget.
Yeah.
And at least that's the person we see on the videos, and he's on Twitter and stuff. And
He's
I'm
front
sure
facing
that
for
when,
sure.
sorry?
He's front facing, like he's the one you see.
Yeah, exactly. He's the face, right? He's the face of competitive Hearthstone. We'll put it that way. Maybe not in charge, but the face of competitive Hearthstone. And I'm willing to bet that he had a lot of cool ideas about how to make it more enjoyable for the players, and that just gets shot down. It's like, no, keep it simple. Don't waste resources. I don't, don't you don't have to hire more casters or whatever to make this a better experience for people. Just cut it down, do 3 events, all ladder, no more qualification bullshit. Just, like, we can cut some costs there as well. Just make it as quick as possible. Boom, there we go. And we'll have it at less than a third of the cost of last year. And that feels bad when you can just see that it's such a cold-hearted business decision that screws over so many people. Yeah, I mean, usually I don't really speak out like that, but this just feels very bad. And the reason why it feels so bad is that it just didn't need to be this way. Because even from a pure monetary perspective, it just feels lazy. It feels like, my suggestion at the start, you can cut down heavily on the prize pool and still create a way better experience. are you gonna get blowback for people saying like, oh, it was 50 grand last time, now it's like what, 15K? Sure, you're gonna have many people like that. But at least there's gonna be awesome tournaments, there's gonna be an awesome circuit. And I bet overall you're gonna catch a way wider net of people being interested in trying their hand at it if, let's say, the top 100 actually mattered. Let's say the top 100 did get an invite and we get, a big tournament like that. But instead, again, very, very lazy, very just to the point, just cut as much as possible, just, get to the top 16 immediately and broadcast that tournament. And that makes me feel so scared for next year, where the logic here is we're going to make it more sustainable, which essentially just like we want it to cost less money. That's a translation.
Yeah, this will continue is basically what that means.
Yeah. Don't get your hopes up, essentially, right? So don't get your hopes up. We're trying to make it sustainable. We're cutting it down. We're downsizing, and yeah, it just feels like if you had invested into it, not just like money, but also just time and effort, and making it this awesome circuit, like it could have bloomed and flourished and been this awesome thing that just enhanced the community, enhanced the game, and then it would have been able to grow. But now it was like this very abrupt start, very forced, very rushed, and then it's like, oh well, that didn't work. Boom, there we go. Let's cut as much as we can.
We were thinking they were using this first year as like a testing period,
yes,
right? But it feels like they were using it the final product, and I was like, oh, it failed. Let's let's change it, right? Let's downsize it.
Yeah.
And
that cost us too much money. Let's do less money.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it was going in with the intention of like, we're gonna test out how Lobby Legends is gonna, how things will flow. Another thing I wanted to talk about was just like using the community to make events, right? So we have these $50,000 prize pools. What if they cut out a $50 prize pool, put like 10K chunks, and gave it to 5 community members to organize a tournament throughout the year, right? So yeah, the community members, 10K tournaments each. You have them work the production, because I definitely think they're thinking the production is too expensive, right? To continue, right? Because it is expensive making the production and everything, right? But if you have the community members like organize these tournaments, I'm sure they could do a very good job with the budget that you give them. So there's a lot of community people that love casting, that love, setting up these tournaments. We had these tournaments last year, Oliak, Salissa, even ourselves, right? We've done tournaments of that caliber, and just like giving them the opportunity to be like, okay, you guys have a budget now, make a tournament, go flesh it out. Yeah. And it would be really cool to just like, oh, Salissa's tournament's coming up, sponsored by Blizzard, let's go, that kind of thing. But now we just have this like somber feeling of like, they don't really want to help. They just want to get these things out of the way. I do think, like as you were talking about Abar, I'm sure he pushed, and that's why we have something at all. You know what I mean? Like,
that's very likely.
I could very easily see we have nothing. Like
he's just like talking, and they're just like, well, we'll just cut it all together. What's the big deal? It's like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that, right? So yeah, obviously we don't know what's going on, and that's 100% speculation, but it doesn't seem, out of the realm of the possible that was the case, where there was even some thoughts of just cutting it all together. And it's like, all right, well, let's keep something. Yeah. I mean, once again, I don't want to speculate too much.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we just have to go on what we were given, right?
We work with what we were given, essentially.
And it's just a sad feeling, a sad thing. I don't think you're gonna have too many people focused on competing. There's obviously going to be the grinders, but I think for a lot of players that were competitive, it's hard to look at this and feel hopeful. It was already exclusive last year, or not exclusive. It was already difficult last year.
I think exclusive is a fairly good word. Like with top 16, that's fairly exclusive, right? If you look at the player base. But yeah, they need a different word for this one. This is extremely exclusive.
and it's even worse this year. And I can't believe you found a way to make it more exclusive. I really can't believe it. It was so rough.
I still think that last year's circuit was awesome, right? Like just from nothing to that, like blew my mind, right?
Right.
Awesome, awesome. But yes, in terms of the inaccessibility for the majority of players, yeah, they definitely found a way to make it worse. And overall, right? Overall worse. But I just don't want to make it seem like, oh, last year was shit and you found a way to make it worse. I don't think that's fair.
No, no, not at all.
I had a great time last year, even though I didn't make it to any of the final events. I was, and this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? I was engaged
The
for pretty
whole
much the whole
year,
year,
yeah.
and I didn't make it to any of the final 16s. I made it to some qualifiers. I made it to round 2 in the qualifiers, but I never made it into the money. But my experience is drastically different. That's what I'm talking about. There was hope, right? There was a chance, there was hope. Right now, there's no hope, there's no chance. And that drastically warps my experience throughout the whole year. And there's many other people who are probably going to feel similar. Whereas in the previous system, there was hope, there was a chance. You could try. You didn't make it that month. You could come back strong next month. Now, you don't get top 10 in the first 2 weeks. It's over.
Over, yeah.
Insane. And then with the prospect that it's very likely to repeat that Clown Fiesta with the next reset if the reset doesn't happen at the very, very beginning of the month. Because then again, this is Grindfest with a new, we're talking MMR reset. That's like, hey, buddies are back or something
Yeah, yeah.
crazy.
It's always gonna
And then,
come with a
yeah,
different meta. That
absolutely. Gotta learn, gotta learn, gotta learn. And then again, right, that information advantage is so crucial. So it's the people that are willing to do the 24-hour shit that are going to get a huge lead, and then you're not going to be able to push them out of the top 10. And the whole Con Fiesta just repeats itself. And yeah, just very, very demoralizing.
Yeah, and even me, right? You said like you never made it to the finals. I did make it to the finals, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
participated in like most of the qualifiers, and even I look at this and I'm like, this doesn't look like it's for me. The effort
Which is
required.
insane. You've been rank 1 of the ladder, right? Like I do well, right? I haven't been rank 1. I've been top 5. Finished the season top 7, right? So it's crazy that I was already looking at myself and I was like, this isn't for me. But then coming from you, who've been rank 1 multiple times, been in the top 16 of Lobby Legends multiple times, top 8 as well, I believe, one
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Advanced to the second day. I remember that. I think that was the very first one. You're like, oh, played like shit, didn't do better in day 2. And then I remember that your expectations shifted and you're like, you know what? I'm pretty glad I made it to day 2 that one time. But even you are like, yeah, this shit is probably not for me, which is insane that they actually like no, there's this term like pricing someone out of something, right? You make it too expensive, right? Like they priced you out of this tournament, like in terms of how many hours you'd have to invest
Okay.
from a multiple time rank 1 player, multiple time Lobby Legends competitor. Like you look at this and you're just like, yeah, this is probably too much. It's absolutely insane.
And that's so sad. I'm so
Yeah.
sad that that's the case, right? Where I look at this and I'm like, nah, I don't think this makes a lot of sense. From effort and value standpoint. So it's really just a rough go at it how they've done this, and I really do think like the the money could have been used better. I guess like
Yeah.
I would say like maybe the first year like the money was not used in for production and promotion like as it should have been, but like with that knowledge where you're like, okay, the production could have been, could have spent more here, could have spent more on promotion, we could have spent more time with the players, giving them characters, giving them interviews where you could post this out, promote this, like I thought you could learn from that, see the mistakes, and then like improve onto the second year. But it realized feels like, okay, what worked? The finals. Let's cut everything else out. Like that's really the conclusion. At least
Yeah.
maybe not the designers or the esports managers, but like the higher ups who were in the meetings or whatever. Like that's the conclusion they came up with, and it's really just hard to sit through this and be like, this is a great, day for Hearthstone. And it sucks because like as BG players we're complaining, but then I always think back to the other two groups, right? The constructed players, right? Where it's so bad, it's so rough. They don't get any money for the Masters tours, and you complete the Masters tours, you make it there, and only the winner gets any compensation. Only the winner. No one else in that whole tournament makes any compensation, which is just like so rough. It's also a smaller pool. It's not these huge lands. I believe there's only 16 players that are going into those, right? And those used to be like 128 players before, so they're cutting that down as well. But that's one group, and the other group is the China players, right? Like it's so rough. As if you look at the FAQ, right, they can't compete
Yeah.
at all. Um,
Yeah, that's the NetEase agreement, right? Not being able to
that
like I want yeah, sorry, before we continue
right,
on, I just want to really even I just want to come back to it and say that we talked about how last year felt like the money wasn't put to good use.
right.
Like a little bit too rushed, too much like, okay, let's just dump a shit ton of money in prize support and it will magically
Yeah, the tournament
generate a
will
lot of
create itself
it will
beautifully.
just magically be there and everything will fall into place because we threw money at it. And like I would have been and I think almost like most people, right? Like it shows character to say, like, you know what, we made a mistake. And because of that mistake, we're gonna have to cut back. We can't throw this much money at it this year. We did it wrong last year, right? We went in too heavy, didn't get the results we wanted, but we don't want to kill off competitive. So here we are with a plan to start small and to really show you guys that we're capable of setting up this circuit and that we care. And it's going to be on a budget. So, yeah, no huge flashy prize pools, but the people that do want to play, they'll have a chance and it'll be a good experience. And like that would have been like, imagine the difference in messaging where that is your message, where you say, we messed up, we take responsibility, we're going to do better. And because we're going to do better now, we're going to have a chance for it to be even better in the future. That's
Blizzard,
power. That's
Blizzard
so
doesn't do
good.
that.
Exactly, right? Like companies in general don't really
Yeah,
do that.
yeah.
And that like this whole post, it's just so disingenuous when you read it. Like the light, it's so like it's smiling at you like, we're doing the best we
We're
can, and
killing you.
this is great for the future. And it's just like downsizing. It's like a sustainability, and it's like all this term. It's just like we talked about. It's a shit sandwich. You just have to eat a shit sandwich when you read this post. And yeah, it's whatever. That's gonna be the last I say on
Right.
that.
You want to talk
But
about the FAQ?
yeah, that one is a treat. That's basically the language there is even better.
You know that the person who wrote this was mad when it came to the FAQ. You could tell that I can't even believe some of the questions they put into this.
Yes, I agree. I think if there was a lawyer present, he would have said like, "Do not type that.
Do
You
not.
have the right to remain silent. Do not type that shit." But yeah, this indeed it baffles me. But this FAQ was posted, so yeah, let's go over some of the.
All right. Yeah, we'll just go down the line. Will there be drops in this year's broadcast? I love that that's the first one. Yes, there'll be drops. Hey guys, first question: will there be drops? No one is thinking about that.
Exactly, right? Like the burning question on everyone's mind. And here, let's throw some positivity of you. The drops will be there.
Woo.
Yes. Now, to be honest, I am not really in touch with most casuals. And maybe honestly, that is like the most important question for most people. So, maybe, who knows? So, benefit of the doubt. We can go to the next one.
All right. Will there be regionalized broadcasts? So currently, there are no plans to reduce regionalized broadcasts, and I've seen some Twitter, like some other broadcasts, say, "Oh, this is my last year doing regional broadcasts due to this message." So it looks like they're just not having regionalized broadcasts. So it looks like there's only going to be an English broadcast and nothing else, and that seems pretty rough for the broadcasters, right? It fits into their downsizing plans, right? Less production costs, da 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 da. But it still really sucks um, to hear that news, right? Like, let's say you're a Spanish speaking player, and this is how you get your esports information. Just saying, "Oh, we don't care about you anymore," is really a slap in the face. Like, I don't know how you can do this realistically, but that's something they did come to the conclusion to do. Um, how come there's only 3 Battlegrounds Lobby Legends tournaments? we want to focus on one main battlegrounds event per expansion, and that is fine. But you're cutting down the pricing, right? Like that's not even mentioned, right? Like, oh, the pricing is being cut down, right? Like focusing on one main battlegrounds event per expansion isn't like that bad, but
I mean,
you're
I think it's just a reason, but like, what's the reason behind the reason? It's like, why? Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to take away events?
right.
It's like we want to focus on one main battlegrounds events per expansion because because and there's nothing there. It's just like we want to make it smaller, basically, right? Like, so that's what I mean with like disingenuous. It's like we want to focus on one main event per expansion. It's like, okay, but why? Like, that's not
I,
the question.
I definitely get the feeling that the person that asked the questions was not the person that answered the question at all. Like
Yeah.
it like Avar could be like, these are the questions you need to answer, and then their lawyer's like, I guess put this down because it definitely like. How can you ask this question and then give this answer? Like it doesn't really feel like they're the same person
Absolutely.
really talking here.
Like there's just some words there to fill that space. That's what it feels like. Like
Yeah.
we need to put some words there to fill that space. There we go. Words have been placed, but the question is not answered.
Yeah. Same thing. How come the three masters events don't have any prize pool? That's a really good question. Like, cause one something I want to talk about was the price difference from last year, right? Like how much things have dropped. So right now, I actually had a link to the last year's uh last year's esports announcements. I don't actually have it in it. Give me like 2 seconds. You can talk about something while I bring this.
Sure, sure. I'll just take the next question.
Yeah, first.
Does this mean that Hearthstone is declining or failing? Once again, this is like you put that in there. That's one of the questions. Like, why do you put like you're just setting yourself up, right? Current scope of Hearthstone esports is separate from the success of Hearthstone. We are thrilled with the upcoming plans for the game and can't wait for players to get to see what is being worked on in the years to come. Like, yeah, that's all good and well, but that doesn't feel right on
You're
a
kind
post
of
like this.
roboting me. Don't know why.
Oh, I'm sorry. Um, okay.
Oh, you can actually
Um,
change that at will. Okay, yeah, it's better.
no, 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 no. I just stopped talking and then, but I'm good now, or
You're decent enough. Go for it.
okay, that's weird. But yeah, like I said, that question feels like it shouldn't really be there. Whereas, like, does this mean that Hearthstone is declining, failing? Because like that is almost the like yeah, I mean the competitive aspect of it is absolutely declining or failing when you're cutting back like this. Um, but yeah, of course, it's a nice answer. Do you want to take over with the thing you were looking for, or I keep going? You haven't found it?
No, Pepe hands, man.
All right, that's fine.
Uh,
Third party invites for Master Tour events. It's not relevant. I really don't want to do too much Master Tour stuff.
all
It's
right.
just BGs.
Whatever. I'll look at it. I'll look at it later. Let's just continue this. I know what
All
I'm
right.
saying. So okay, last year, regardless of it, last year the prize pool total was 3 million. Actually, that's
Sure.
it was 250, 2,500,000 for constructed, and we had the 500,000 prize pool. They've downsized it all the way where constructed is now getting 500,000 and battlegrounds is getting 150. So we're basically getting like a third of what we had last year, while constructed is getting a fifth, right? Like they go from
Yeah.
2.5 and that's such a drastic drop from year over year, right? Like can you imagine like 20%?
Yeah. So I think that in BGs, there were very few, if any, true pro players, right? That said, like, okay, I grind for Lobby Legends. I make my money from Lobby Legends. Don't do anything. I focus on that. I know that was a big part of what you did, but we have a lot of those in standard, right?
Right.
Players who are actually just, I'm just about it for the game. I just want to do well in events. I just want to do well in tournaments. I don't want to make my money. And like my Twitter, I don't even really follow standard players, but obviously like through friends of friends, like my
Right.
timeline is full of people saying I'm retiring. And of course, like you cannot make a living off this more. Like I wouldn't recommend making a living off EVs even last year. But like from standard, there were a decent amount of people that were doing that. Because like you said, there was what 2.5 million prize pool for standard. And yeah, if you're gonna cut that down to fifth, then yeah, that's a very good reason to retire. Because it's not only like this year, it's like, okay, how bad is next year gonna be? So it's just time to get out for a lot of professional constructed players.
Yeah, I mean it's true. Like it's really hard to, if you're a professional player in constructed this year, for you to like look at this and be like, this is doable. Like eight people are gonna make any money. Like eight people are gonna make money. Everyone else is making $0, like basically, right?
Oh,
So
interrupt me when I'm got the robot, by the way, right? Like just you talk if it hasn't been fixed yet.
okay, it's good right now, but
Okay.
it was pretty robot-y while last time did it rough. Um, but okay, let's just continue. Can I co-stream or repros the Masters Tour Lobby Legends for Sale? We could do this last year, so I'd be surprised if this changes. And this doesn't cost them any money, right? So I wasn't like
Yeah,
expecting them to
it's
do.
just like a skip, right? It's like sure you can still stream it,
Yeah, you can
whatever.
still stream it, right? This question: does this mean Hearthstone Esports being canceled in 2024? Like, how can you ask this question? Like, how can you put this down?
Like why is that there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the answer is also so bad.
Like we're not gonna share. We don't have it. Like not even some reassurance, right? Not even, like okay. So I think one of the only reasons you put that question up there is if you have some reassurance.
Right.
Like why? Like if you don't have reassurance, don't put that shit in there. Like is Hearthstone Esport gonna be canceled? We can't say. Like, that's not what you want to hear. You want to be like, no, we're gonna be here for you. We're gonna have something ready. Otherwise, don't put that shit in there, right?
It's
Yeah.
such a weird question to put in there with the answer that they provided. We can't share anything about the 20. It just seems like they're saying, "Oh, it's being canceled." Like that's what I take away. I don't really take away like that. Like, but that's a feeling. I wouldn't be surprised if you got out of that question. Like, we're canceling 2024. Like, if you came out of that with that expectation, I'm not like you're wrong. Like I'm not, like they haven't given us anything to go off of. It's just such a weird question to put in there. Is this because of low viewership from being exclusive to YouTube the last 3 years? Like that is such
Again,
a
why is that in there? Why is that in there?
that's like I feel like did what's it called, like a player ask these questions beforehand, and, like it's so pointed, like it's actually questions like you would ask them, right? Like if you could, like, is are these changes due to the low viewership? Like that is a realistic question to ask, right? um and their answer wasn't like very good. Our goal is to balance the cost of running esports while taking into account the size of the competitive community. But they didn't say no, right? Like they didn't say no.
Yeah, again, words were placed on that line. They did not answer the question, right? Words were placed on that line. There we go. It's the same answer as what was it earlier? We want to focus on one main battlegrounds event.
Yeah, right.
Same thing there. You put words on that line, you didn't answer the question. Which once, because obviously that's not a question you're going to want to answer. And I get that, right? Like not every company wants to be answering those questions. But if you're going to put them up there as an FAQ, like answer them. If not, like, yeah, but yeah, whatever.
Right, and I'm sure, like to answer it ourselves, I'm sure it impacted it, right? Like the
I mean,
move,
of course,
yeah, right.
But so for those of you who don't know, they were offered a lot of money from, is Google on YouTube? I don't know, like whatever. YouTube, right? Like
Right.
offered them a lot of money to move their business there instead of Twitch, become
Right.
exclusive for like what, 3 years or
3 years,
so.
yeah.
and now that contract is running out, and now they're surprise going to be back on Twitch. So yeah, that must have looked great for their quarterly.
It was fantastic.
That was a fantastic quarterly report where it was like, you know what, we have this insane spike in revenue by moving to YouTube. But yeah, obviously you're going to damage your long-term prospects. But I don't even know if it's the same person in charge 3 years later. So hey, that's problems for the next guy,
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's, again, right? That's just what it feels like, and it's so frustrating to just see this this competitive scene being torn apart, torn to pieces.
All right. Now that Hearthstone Esports can be on Twitch, why not increase funding to bring players back? That's a great question. These questions are great.
Yeah, the questions are amazing. I have no problem with the questions, because
we're excited for the Masters Tours to be back on Twitch after 3 years, and we're eager to see what our audience there is like. The new program is sized for sustainability as Hearthstone Esports turns 10. So basically, they're saying like we don't know what the viewership's going to look like this year, even though we're back on Twitch. So we're just being as safe as possible, not really increasing funding because we don't know.
Well, it's not just that we're gonna wait and see, right? There's that line again. It's sized for sustainability. That implies that they have no
intention of
increasing it as well. So this is not let's wait and see if it does well on Twitch, and then let's expand. Once again, like maybe that is implied, right? But I really that word resized for sustainability, that is just we don't want to spend a lot of money on it. And yeah, okay, whatever, fair here, maybe for some, like that requires a heavy dose of copium, right? But like it magically does really well on Twitch, and they're like, okay, it makes sense.
I don't have copium.
We don't have that much copium. We don't have that kind of copium.
Next question: is the price per reduction because of NetEase as a Chinese sponsor publisher? I actually don't think this is. I think this is like an actual true. Like this answer is like accurate. No, we began evaluating the side of the program before we understood we weren't given an agreement at NetEase. As we show, we're committed to Chinese players and actively exploring alternatives to bring our games back to China in the future. So I had a big issue with this because even though they are exploring alternatives to bring the big games back in China, that's not going to happen in 2023. Like I don't think the game is going to be back in China 2023. Probably earliest is 2024, and that's a whole year off, right? Like the people you're coming like let's say the games come back, it's not going to look the same in China after a year, right? Like let's say I couldn't play Hearthstone for a year, and the next year I could play. Am I like immediately? No, you've kicked me out. Like so, regardless, the landscape of China is forever changed. Like it's not going to be the same as it was, and it's just such a big deal that you lose this NetEase and you couldn't immediately replace it. So even though you might get China players back in the future, it's not going to be the same landscape. It's going to be very different, and that's such a big loss of like player base and interest there. So it's just going to be really, really rough from that perspective. And that's kind of how I look at it, as well as like just being a player and knowing that you could lose your whole livelihood, right? If you're like if you're doing any like casting or anything in that space, like you could lose it like that. It's just so bad. Pretty rough one.
Seems like a good. Oh, you want to? Okay, sure.
Right. The stat, and this is just like the status of players. So so players can't compete in they changed this answer from yesterday. Actually, this was not here yesterday. Actually, or this answer was different. Basically, unfortunately, why we'd like to invite them, the Gold Series, mainland China's competitive Hearthstone program, was run by the previous local publisher, which provided invites to the players to compete in Hearthstone programs outside mainland China. Due to the end of agreement, circumstances have changed. We've hoped to enable Chinese players to globally compete as we find alternatives for bringing Hearthstone back. This answer was not this yesterday. I remember reading this yesterday, and
Oh,
yeah, and it basically said no, we can't do it. Or now they're saying we would like to, but the way it's set up, we don't have control of whether we invite them or not. So I'd say this is a better answer from last yesterday, where it's like no. So but still, at the end of the day, Chinese players can't compete. So that's um that's pretty rough, right, for all of them, right? They don't have any access, right? You can't use like a VPN or anything like that to make it in, because that's what we were thinking. Like, oh, they could go on a VPN and compete that way, but it looks like you just that's pretty rough. I mean, that's the overall Hearthstone announcement. It's like TL, like overall, it's restrictive. Um, it's less tournaments, less prizing overall, and it's harder to compete. And the first month is very very important. How you or what chances you feel you have for the following tournament. So, any final thoughts on? You know, we've delved into this.
yeah, yeah. I mean, just a really, really big reminder that the people that we interact with don't make these calls. So, people you tag on Twitter, devs, a bar, just
Right.
in general, like Alkali, um, they if they called the shots, they would have probably made some very different decisions, and they would have wanted it to be different, even though they're not going to be able to say that, of course. So yeah, be very kind. It's not their fault. This is just pure business, which is extremely frustrating. And I don't really want to be talking too much about it anymore anyway, because it is what it is. And I'm not someone that likes to waste a lot of energy trying to change something that's just not going to change. But it is sad because it didn't need to be this way, right? Sometimes you can look at something tragic and you say, well, that could not have been avoided. And that is just not the case here. Like this could have 100% been avoided. And yeah, that is what hurts.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely gonna make a lot of people reevaluate how they want to compete. Definitely me, and see how I want to do things moving forward. But it sucks because I do love Hearthstone the
Yeah.
most, and things like that, and it's still fun. And we're gonna talk about the changes in the but it's it still sucks, like from a competitive aspect. A lot of players have been kicked out, and it just rough to see. So we have to. I mean, I felt like we had to talk about it this week as it came out. I just felt like it was too important to ignore. But moving on, we're still going to talk about BG and the ecosystem and like metas and stuff like that. But still, just this is a big deal for a lot of our friends, associates. Definitely wanted to talk. All right, we can move on finally. Hey, there's a hot. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. There's a hot fix, guys. Let's go. Hot fix in the game. They're changing things. Woo. Copium. I know it's hard. It's hard to move on. I
No,
understand.
I mean, it is a Battlegrounds podcast, right? So here we go.
Yeah.
Let's talk some
Uh,
Battlegrounds.
but yeah, they rolled out a patch 25.2.1 server side hotfix. So they did a couple of changes. Battlegrounds updates. So Scabs, Test, Illidan, Tasman have been returned to the Battlegrounds pool. So Scabs Test, I don't know if they had a bug in particular. Um,
Yeah, they like there was footage of like Scaps taking a Putricide minion and then getting like a cart that turned him into Lord Nefarian or some shit, and then like the Scabs changes heroes and he's gaining like 30 armor per turn, and like there was a screenshot of a guy on like sitting on 250 armor. It's like it proper broke the game. So yeah,
okay.
there was
Okay.
some weird shit with stealing Putricide minions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that explains that. And then Illidan and Tasman had this bug with Horsey or Blanchy, where if you kill the Blanchy before
Yeah.
the fight starts, and then the Soul Splitter gives the reborn to Blanchy since it doesn't have reborn. That reborn becomes a permanent enchantment for Blanchy, and Blanchy just survives forever. Just
Yeah.
infinite reborn because it's part of the enchantments now. So you could do that extremely easy with Illidan and Tasman, right? Because Tasman you just kill it before the fight starts. Illidan you go into a minion and it dies, right? So that was just like a crazy interaction that people were discussing before the patch came out. I want to throw that in there. That hey, the patch was before the patch came out. Like people were like, "What about this interaction?" And apparently they didn't catch it.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Yeah.
It's crazy, dude. I don't know. There's not enough playtesters. Um,
They're not gonna cookie chemist their chroma wings, trust me.
there's
They're
just
not gonna
not enough
they're
playtesters,
not gonna
guys.
do it.
Because the patch, they didn't even like the people that thought about this didn't even have to play with the cards. Like they just were like, well, what if we do this? And they're like, well, that works. So it's just so crazy. But yeah, Illidan Tess had that interaction that was just so stupid, and then Scabs and Tess had that stealing putricide minions that would just broke the game. Mirazon had the same thing, right, with putricide minions, right? So that had to be removed. Now, my favorite news was Wasteland Assassin and Devourer of Souls have been removed from Putricide's hero
Yes.
power pool. So, Wasteland Assassin was the 4-2, I believe. Reborn Divine, was it Reborn Stealth? Reborn Stealth minion.
Yeah,
Uh,
you get the 2 best ones in one, right?
mm-hmm.
Like, this is like the your guy is not dying package, the
Yeah.
stealth reborn
Stealth
package.
Reborn is so
We're gonna
disgusting.
hook you up. Your guy ain't dying package, right? That's like, ooh, nice.
And then Devourer Souls, we talked about it last week. This card was so stupid. They needed. I was like, how can you allow this card in the game? It's all dog. What the hell?
Did you get to do the poison blaster thing or not?
I did not. No, I
Ah,
didn't. But
that's so stupid.
we knew the card was stupid, Charity. Okay.
No, but
Yeah.
like prop
Venom. I know Venom
like
Monster.
you win every fight, right?
Yeah, I know.
Because you just have a bunch of tokens, right? And you just AoE poison, and then you have tokens and they don't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah,
Anyway,
that
fine.
card is so
Good riddance.
bad.
But we knew that, right?
Yeah,
Like when we saw that announcer, like this will not stay in the pool.
no, there's no way. There's no way this is gonna stay. I even told him. I told him before it. I was like, "Hey, dude, we removed," but it's fine. They removed it pretty quickly, like 3 days out. Like so.
Finger was on the trigger
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
pretty
for
much.
sure. But in replace of that, Possessive Banshee, which is the 2/7 buff Banshee, Headless Forsaken, which is the 2/2 Reborn, and then the new minion Cursed Shadow, which is a tier 5/7/5 undead with stealth. They've all been added in their minion pool to replace it. Obviously, they're not as strong as the ones that got removed, so it is a nerf to Putricide. I mean, which needed a nerf anyways, but yeah. Um, Then the following heroes have less armor. So Galakron and Toki have been moved to armor tier 1. This makes sense because they were able to get undead minions earlier than other people, and the meta
Yeah.
is like undead minions are good. So if you can get it earlier than other people, you win. So makes sense they got nerfed. And then Drekthar, Greybull, Togwaggle have been moved to armor tier 2. I don't know if they all had the same armor. I don't think they did.
Greybow had a lot of armor.
Mhm.
Togwaggle was armor tier 3, and Drektor was like at least armor tier 4 or
Okay.
something. That like, he was rocking quite a bit.
So I mean, Drekthar, because like these are all things that summon a lot, right? Greybull, right? You get the taunt and the buff, and the Togwaggle just steals. I don't know, like it's a good unit. And this hero has more armor. So Pyramid got nerfed, right? And it makes
Was
sense
armor
that
tier
they're
3,
upping the armor up. But overall, these are like crazy changes, right? They haven't touched any undead cards. Uh, but
well,
it
apart from the Putricide stuff,
yeah,
but
so
yeah.
apart from the future size stuff, but it's a step in the right direction, and this is a hot fix patch, so I don't think they can adjust like heavily the undead cards, right? You kind of have to wait for an official patch to do. So
Mhm.
cool. Also, there's some like bug fixes, right? Discover effects could sometimes discover non-battlegrounds cards. Like that seems thing, right? Like Blanchy could get infinite reborn, right? Future sites creations could be tripled. The triples were failed experiments that lost some of their combined power. Yeah, so if you triple the future site creation, you lose all the enchantments. Like pretty bad. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, Fortress Refiner, like these are just some battlegrounds bugs that are gonna happen with new cards being added into the pool. Yeah, the reborn, yeah, tripled minions would lose reborn with Mecha Draxus. I experienced that one as well. Um, and then there's just like the overall meta discussion. Any thoughts on that in particular? We can definitely get started in that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I at the very, very beginning, I talked about how my day 2 was very different than my day 1. For me, my general stance right now are that undead are actually not very strong on average, and that it's really, if you like a Nubarak is sort of the linchpin, where if you
You're a
do
new
not
Barak fan. Okay.
well, yeah, if you don't get early in Nubarak to pump up the damage, then both Sister kind of slaps a lot of health on you guys. But in an environment where people play like Magmalux and stuff, your shit just gets value traded out of the wazoo, right? So it's like, yeah, you get a lot of health there, guys. I don't really care. So the sister scaling doesn't really matter if you don't have a lot of Anubrag damage. So then apart from Putricide shenanigans, we're talking like really early Eternal Summoner and then hitting more of them and then having the Reborn, or really early Anubarak with Reborn and Farm. I think
I,
if you don't have those two things, undeads on average are pretty weak.
I want to first off say that a new Barak is too good and needs a nerf,
Way
and there's no way it should give +1/+2 attack. It's passive scaling crazy, where you just have this on your board and you're scaling all your minions plus the minions you're summoning. They start summoning like 50 attack. It's like not okay. Definitely think this could be nerfed down to +1 attack. And even then, I'm not even sure that's balanced. Like, because like you just put a Titus, and it's probably better. Like, it is probably better, for sure. But it's still like though for sure the way it is right now, it's too. But
I I'd say that undeads are in a little bit of a weird spot where when the shit comes together, it's too strong, but then on average, it's pretty weak. So then I'm not even sure what that looks like when you start tinkering and you
well,
say Anubarak
you
only
you
plus
you
one
could say
attack.
it's too weak, but that might be just because like Magma Locky, cards like that is like too good, and they also need a nerf. You know what I mean? Like
I
so,
Okay, so I would say the big one is Blanchy. I don't know if you were gonna talk about Blanchy.
in terms of
Because
like non-undead compositions, or
yeah, it's stupid. Like, I would say the vast and Chronodormo, right? Chronodormo and
right?
Blanchy, I think those 2 are absolutely bonkers.
I think
So,
okay. The card I was thinking about, but Blanchy is also undead. So like
yeah.
that one kind of
Well,
fits the
for
undead
for
pack.
me, it doesn't look like undead because it doesn't go in my undead comps, if that makes
Oh, I
sense.
see what you're saying.
So I've won so many games now with just doing Theo,
Theo and
and
Blanchy, right? Yeah,
Theo, like, you can even run 2 separate Blanchies because 'cause you're
because
different
they're
types.
both there. Yeah, yeah.
One will count as an undead, one will count as a beast, and, like, you have a glow scale and you put a
I
shield on
know.
that shit.
I told you, Naga Blanchi. I called it.
Dude,
It's so strong.
I had, like, a 190 health
Yo,
divine
yo,
shield
Blanchi.
Blanchi.
Yeah, that
That's
revives.
insane, right? Like, so you have a 190 health minion with divine shield that respawns, keeping its
200 health.
190 health
Yeah, and
and has a
shield.
divine.
It's so stupid.
So,
I agree.
like, that is so absolute. So that is, I feel like that is gonna be meta. Like when people catch on, it's just like buff Blanchy and like you just make a bunch of stats. Like, okay, so I I did the Anubarak thing one time today when I was able to get it early, and I even ran a reborn parrot, right? To just juice faster and faster and faster. And then I just played a bunch of tokens. And then it's really dumb because you are
Yeah.
making 50 attack tokens, and it's very hard to outscale that. But I think for the vast majority of cases, you don't get to do that. So then it's really safer to just, like play a Theodore, play Brand Magmalock, play Hogger or whatever, to just make a lot of stats and then play some either blaster or straight shot or whatever you can do to tech. Cleave also works, right? At like a Wind Fury
Cleave's really
cleave.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can Mecha Jiraxis, right, for Wind Fury. So you can even when Naga's around, you can do that. So yeah, essentially that's the that's my 3-day take. So 3 more days from now, I might say, oh well, undeads are busted. But right now, that's sort of where I'm at. Where I feel like I'm winning the vast majority of my wins are not undead, where I just make good stats and the undead player doesn't get there.
So that's true that undead is still like heavily contested. So you either have to high roll, and then also you don't have that like super like I always win putricide player, right?
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
it's a
Where
wild
like
card. Yeah,
yeah,
like if
yeah,
the Peter side does get like the 2 reborn summoners or whatever, right, it is still very difficult.
yeah. But now you're starting to see like undead, like in a more like realistic, not skewed by putricide in every game dominating and that kind of thing. And you can start to see like some of the pitfalls where it's kind of hard to get the scaling online, right? If you don't have a Nubarak, I feel like you are losing a lot of that like win con potential.
Yeah, it feels like you're not playing undead if you don't have Nuber.
If you don't have, like
Yeah,
you can run sister, and sister can give you some scaling,
yeah.
but you end up like I think with sister alone you end up like second place, even if you like high roll sisters. Like you
And
lose to
even
the
if
the
you
the, the
second,
guy who
right?
scales like
Like
normally.
you can have 2 guys that are scaling, right? So you're not even guaranteed second.
No,
Because
I know. I'm talking about like high roll sister, like has everything. Da da da.
so
Like
with some Anubarak procs as
yeah,
well,
yeah,
or
some of Nubarak procs, yeah,
oh,
like
okay.
but
Yeah, yeah.
not like Titus, Nubarak, Golden,
Sure, sure.
like just like some
Yeah,
scaling,
yeah, yeah.
like
Just yeah, because you do need to use some Anubarak procs to make up for the lack of damage, but
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I can see that.
uh,
But yeah, like the Millhouse, the Gallywix is
yeah,
just gonna punch you.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like
Hey, this is my 200 master realities, donk.
yeah, and you can also just win with eternal summoners, but it's not the eternal night scaling that gets you, right. It's the fact that
Yeah,
this thing summons 3 minions, or
and
well,
the Anubarak
which
has juiced them up,
yeah,
right?
right, yeah. So like they might have like 10 health, but they have like 70 attack, right? And they're just like
Yeah, yeah.
smashing you.
But again,
Um,
it comes back to that one card, right? That's why I said it's the linchpin. I think without a Anubarak, you're not really playing undead,
I
or at
see.
least you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I found annoying is like Titus with the what's that one card called, with the handless Forsaken.
Yeah.
Right, when you have Titus with this thing where summons 2 of them and they both have reborn, right? Like
Mm.
I'm just like, dude, there's too many procs, right? When they have a new Brack summons with the Titus with this card, it just feels like it goes on forever. I'm just like, oh my god, here's another 50 attack, hand. Oh, there's this hand reborn. Oh, there's another hand because they summoned 2 with the Titus. I'm just like, stop it! Like it just kept going. And I'm just like, oh my god, like I'm not. I don't know. And like this card isn't the problem. It's just like with Titus, I find it so annoying because it feels like it never ends. Because at the
It-
back they also have like the
yeah,
Eternal
it's got a
Summoner.
lot of stuff in
Yeah,
there for sure. That's definitely your thing where that's the one you don't want to get straight arrow or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
I hope you're like, yeah.
Also, Ghoul of the Feast, right? Like, why is it +3 attack? Like, obviously, this
Oh,
this card is
yeah.
like so stupid. Like, you could make it +2 attack and it's still broken. You know what I mean? Like,
For sure,
its
for sure.
card is insane. You don't win, like it's not a win con, but like the early tempo you get this, especially with Rat Pack, dude. Ah man, you
Yeah.
take 15 every time. Like this card makes you take 15 too much, like too often.
It just allows you to power level like crazy.
Yeah,
So it just sets you up to find the Theodore or the early Nubarak or so.
I definitely not a fan. I'm still down with Soul Splitter not having reborn itself. Like I'm still happy at a change like that.
Yeah, I mean, the more I play, the more I'm just like, yeah, I do feel like undeads are kind of weak. So it is
Katie, you're Okay, let's say we remove Blanchy, you wouldn't say that. I mean, you'd be like, oh, I mean,
No, I think you'd still be perfectly fine to play Theodore and Outstat, or because right now Magma Lock plus Master of Realities is also just like
yeah,
stupid
yeah.
simple.
Magma Lock is so. When you were saying, "Oh, the card," we talked about the same card. I thought you were going to talk about Magma Lock. That was the
Oh
card.
yeah,
That was the card
Magma
I was going to talk about. Like, I think this card is so strong.
also very good. Okay, but let's talk about the other one, right? In terms of stats, because okay, so if we would remove Blanchy, remove Magma Lock, and also remove Chronodormu, I can see it, where undeads are too strong all of a sudden. But the amount of times where I make obscenely large Chronodormus is just oh my god, because there's so much bullshit you can do. Where there's so much fluff that you can throw on top of the Chronodormu. So you can Uther shit, you can use Ball of Minions, you can throw triples at it, you can throw your 6/6 from Golden Monkey at it. Usually, when I see a Chronodormu, I usually sell down to 2 minions or so, and then I just rebuild. Because right now in this meta, there's not a ton of Leroy Manted out there, so you don't really get punished.
And there's not a lot of
And
synergy with having a like. You don't need synergy, I guess, on your board. You just need big things.
yeah. So I will say that my goal is almost always Theo, so it's just perfect, right? Just as this big dragon, and then you can do whatever. So like ideally, I already have a Theo, and I'll just keep like Blanchy, Chronodormo, Theo. That's it, and then I'll just rebuild. It's very easy, right? You just take 1/3 type, a brand or whatever crap, and I had like one game where I was Tess, and somebody had two of these on the board. I hero power, two of them appear in the shop, and I was able to juice them up both to 250, 250.
Oh, they. Oh, right. They both get it. Oh, that's
They
so.
both gain
That's
it at the
that.
same
No,
time.
that's so stupid.
Absolutely dumb. So if you're Tess and you can ever see anyone with two of these on the board, you have almost immediately unlimited stats. So that's I think this card is probably the main thing that allows me to sort of just crush undead, because that's why I said like, oh, you don't have 50 damage tokens? Like you just don't get there, bro. Like I've got a big ass dragon in the back. I've got a big ass horse that reborns with a lot of health when it comes back. Because like even just like Bran with a Banshee on a Blanchy, that's like 14, that's 28 effective health off one card. It's pretty dumb. So yeah, like Jug with Theo, even taunting the Blanchy, right, with the 2/6 is usually okay, because you don't read as undead, you're a menagerie, so people don't really straight shot you.
Right.
So there's tons of things. So yeah, most of my games I just end up tanking the undead players where I'm too big. And that's mostly because of Chronodormo. If dragons are out, it's a harder thing to do. And yeah, like you can do it, right? But you would need the engine of like, two Magma locks, Master of Reality. So generally, if I'm going into a lobby, I'll look at the types, right? Like dragons in, Murlocs in, elementals in. For me, that's very rare that I'll play undead. Maybe I'll take a 5
Why
if it's
Murlocs
under.
in?
So Murlocs is a big part of Magmalock as well, because you can do
Because
Bran.
you
Yeah.
were talking like you don't play Magma Lock at all. And now I hear you're like, oh yeah, Magma Lock.
Oh, right. I know, man. I mean, yeah. Sorry, I should have played it. I should have made it a little bit more clear. But yeah, if I can play Magma Lock in a stat comp, I'll play Magma Lock, of
Okay,
course.
okay. I
Because,
was. You were like,
yeah,
it's just Blanchy and Chroma on Norway, and then here I hear you
yeah.
going like
No,
Mag.
those are on my board as well, because they obviously work exceptionally well with Master of Reality. So for anyone who doesn't know Magma Lock, it's like a major domu, but it buffs itself, and it's not every elemental plate; it's every card plate or every minion plate, not
Right.
card. So like coins and gems don't count. But you have Bran, you play Primal Fin, the Primal Fin pulls a Tad, you like play card, Mirazon, Tavern Tempest, cycle. So at
And
the end
with
of the turn,
Gallywix and with Millhouse is
yeah,
crazy. Like it's so crazy. Yeah.
like with Millhouse, I was able to get like a 400 health Bran because I just made such huge ball of minions. It's because I just popped the fuck off, right? Because like that Banshee card, you could throw it on ball, right? So that's like 14 health on a ball of minions. So imagine if you're Millhouse, that's like 1 gold plus 14 HP on the ball of minions. Yep, next, right? Just keep going. So so my original point was like elementals, murlocs, dragons. If that is in, it's very easy to just build a bunch of stats, because you have many opportunities for Magma Lock. It can come from Tavern Tempest, it can come from Primal Fin. It benefits from both of those. Dragons are in for the Chrono Dormu, and then the Elemental Murloc package. So the go to 6 and then have Seafood Chef, you can still make a golden Magma Lock so it scales faster. You can still make a golden Ball. You can still make golden Primal Fin. There's still lots of
Why
things
is
to even.
seafood still in? I honestly think that's
Yeah,
so
exactly. There's
stupid.
a
Like
lot of stuff.
what the
I think
hell?
right now it's fine because as you mentioned, there are a ton of undead players, and I think if we remove all the cards I just talked about, it is hard to outstat them because a few Anubarak procs will still be pretty damn annoying. A few summoners are still pretty damn annoying, but there's a lot of times where I play against them and I'm just like, yeah, like 20 damage tokens, that ain't it, bro. It's not enough. Like you need more. They got this like 300 health dragon in the back chilling. You gotta have to do better than that. So it's quite refreshing right now, but the meta I think is adjusting. There's less players just mindlessly forcing undead. There's still enough of them to farm them, but there's definitely a bit of a change. I definitely lose to stat players quite often where I see someone doing the same thing where I'm just like, oh yeah, you're like some Greta Golden Atissa board, for instance, right?
I've
That
lost to
works
that.
wonders.
That's
Yeah.
I've done
Greta
that.
Greta Golden Atissa, very good. Because Greta's a Naga as well, so she could be one of your 3 Nagas.
I've
So
also
you
won
can
with that too, actually. Lost
yeah.
and won with that. Yeah, that's
Your reborn poison creation would be you. Well, they removed that guy that absorbs all the death rattles, right? And even if you have reborn poison, Blanchy with Divine Shield would like to have a conversation with you. Because
She's having a
Blanchy,
lot of conversations.
yeah, Blanchy's she's very popular. She's like, honestly, 3/4 of my games, chat can just hear me say, "Okay, I'm rolling for a Blanchy," because it's like the perfect minion for my situation. So yeah, I triple into 5s a decent amount as well because getting like let's say everything is in right, you can hit Master, you can hit Hogger, you can hit Blanchy, you can hit a Nubarak, you can hit Bran right for like the Magma Lock setup. So there's a lot of stuff you can get. Obviously, if you are healthy enough to go straight into the 6 and then you're on 5, great. But I don't hate taking a 5 if the money is like awkward or so
I
for a
hate
6
it.
or yeah, like
But
I've just
fair.
come to the conclusion that there's enough stuff. But depending on the lobby, right? Depends on what's in. And just because a Nubarak's a wild card, right? Like that's always like an insane hit. So if a Nubarak early, you triple into that, especially if you can get like a parrot or a soul splitter to really juice up that attack. Anyways, general gist, that's it for me. It's like I tend to not go undead unless I get the Unibrak, and then I push for a ton of stats.
Sounds good. I don't know how I don't have any just I just play how it feels. I definitely think like maybe like I'm sure they're gonna adjust undeads, right? And I think after the adjustment we'll see like more problems with the cards, right? Because right
Yeah.
now, like I would say like Magma Lock's too good. I would say Blanchy's too good. I would say Core Normal a problem. Like I don't know about too good, but it's definitely a problem card. I don't know how to change it, right? Like that's
I,
the
I
thing.
I would say if the meta changes and people are more into Leroy Queen again, it becomes much more
See, but
manageable
there's
because
always the undead player fucking you over.
yeah, but like
That's the
that's
issue.
what I mean if the meta changes, right? So I think if they nerf undead, it actually becomes this like pretty damn weak type. So I'm not sure how they're gonna do it. But anyways, like I get the point, right? Like if like especially in the current environment where
Yeah.
people, whether it's strong or not, people are playing it. So you don't really want Leroy Queen on your board unless, of course, you inspected the lobby. Because I've had some lobbies where it's like top 5 no undeads.
Yeah, me too. And I'm like always like surprised. I'm like,
They're
what's
learning, right? I'm like, they're learning. They didn't get a new bracket and they're not playing undead. So yeah, they're learning. So yeah, there are certain lobbies where I'm running 2 queens and I'm just like, well, I know how this works. So let's do it.
I've never played a Leroy though.
Oh wow, yeah.
I've
No,
never done that. That's not me.
I mean, I especially with Theo, right? I've got all the excuse in the world to buy a Leroy.
Yeah,
So
you golden Theo, and you're like, oh
I'm
well,
a Theo enthusiast, yeah, for sure.
Leo works right here. Like, oh,
It's like, yeah, Leroy's the jug, and might kill some things, great. Well, but will kill something, might kill something good. Yeah.
I've played Leroy the buff with my Theo and then sold it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that happens. That happens. If you're against the dead, that shit is a joke. Worse than a joke. Right?
That's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I definitely think these cards are definitely gonna be this first patch. Then
Yeah.
maybe next
Well,
week.
maybe, I mean, all of them. All
I
right.
don't trust. I don't trust.
All right, all of them.
Sorry.
So that is indeed going to create a situation where I do think that, if you're creating a stat comp, like the difference between somebody having a Blanchy and buffing a Blanchy and not is just so
So
big.
big.
Like, because there's like that first wave of Leroy Queen and Poison, but then after it comes back, it still has all its health. So it just cleans up, like especially with the glow scale, right? It's so good. So yeah, I do think it creates this situation of who got the Blanchy when they were buffing and who didn't. Also
I
quite
I
fun.
I love it.
Yeah,
We're talking about the next meta already. Like
yeah, of course. I
that's
mean, it wouldn't be very exciting if we were just talking about this meta. That's obvious, right? It's here,
we're
right?
already moved on from like we're like, oh, what's the next one? Looking like, this Blanchy meta, like you're talking like we're playing into it. We don't even
Which is also so funny, right? Because I'm streaming quite a bit, and the amount of comments I get are like, "Well, you can't play anything from undead." Like, "Oh, you're kind of throwing. You don't have any undead units on your board." And it's so much easier for people to just have that on switch, but it's like, all right, just force undead.
Well,
Undead
it's
is,
because it's
yeah.
simpler, right? And that's how people like to.
It's simpler, but it's also just it's a little exhausting for me to have to point out every time. Like, no, it's actually on average not that good. Yeah, their top end is sick, right? Not
Yeah,
gonna
they
argue with
beat
that.
me this time, but like next time, they're not that good. Oh,
Well, not only that, because you can have, let's say, 75% of the lobby winners are undead. That means it can still be a bad meta pick. Because yeah, like one guy gets the shit and wins, but like the five other guys that tried get like bottom five.
yeah, for sure.
That's bad MMR. It is not a good deal. So we saw this as well during the like Doomsayer meta where people were playing a lot of frogs. So many people like pushing for frogs. There's like four guys in the bottom four forcing frogs, and one guy makes it out. One guy makes MMR. Four people lose MMR. It's like, and then people have this idea like frogs are overpowered to insane. I'm just like, no, it's actually a really bad pick for your MMR. If you want to climb, probably don't play. Unless it's handed to you, right? Same with Undead. You get that early in Uberak with a Soul Splitter, of course, slam dunk, go for it. It's broken. But I think if you don't have that case and you're not a Putricide or so, I think twice, right? See if there's anything else you can do. Because in the end, the vast majority of undead boards I beat, they just have some random reborn shit. And you're like, why are you reborning?
Because
it's
it's
like,
fun. That's what they told me to do,
yeah,
Shady. That's
like
what they told me. I
they
was
have this
watching
like,
the streamer and he said do it, and I did it.
sometimes I see this hand who's like summoning an actual 2 to it. I'm like, it's turn 11, man. This shit does got tickled for 6 in total by your unit. Oh no, right? It's just, yeah, they have undeads on their board, but they don't do anything. Whatever. Don't have to keep going on
Fair
about it.
enough. Fair. All right. I think we've covered a lot. Anything else? Any other meta discussion?
No, I think we've touched on this and the potential next meta, right? With the race to Blanchy when you're buffing. I think
Yeah,
there's still like Buster Exodia is also cool. Like if you can pull that
I
off.
haven't seen that at all. Dude,
That's
I see Buster with Fell Stomper.
sure, but it's just like if you can run the Blaster Baron, you kind of by default eliminate a lot of boards, right? Because a lot of boards haven't been able to play around that yet.
Mm.
So I think if you can do Mech Exodia, it's also very good.
Well, I haven't seen it at all, so.
Shuva had it and emoted profusely when he destroyed me with it. So it's fresh on my mind from this morning.
Okay, that explains.
Yeah.
Just got destroyed.
Just got absolutely wrecked by it. Yeah. Nice
Fair
little
enough.
Buster.
Fair enough. But yeah, that is the meta discussion. We'll see how it changes over the next coming weeks. Definitely think they should have a patch. Like I would be surprised if they don't have a patch nerfing some cards. But yeah, definitely the ones to look out for is the Nubrak nerf, hopefully. And then Go of the Feast, I think, is a problem, as well as
Yeah,
Eternal Summoner. But whatever.
yeah, Eternal in the context of being like a Nubarak fodder, or
Yeah, like, yeah.
yeah,
And
that's a
like
lot of money.
you can't just get like a 30 health like summon 5 copies of
Yeah,
it.
if you get it early, it can be obscene.
Yeah,
But
it's
it's most
the
of the time it's future sites, right? When I see people doing summoner stuff.
yeah when it yeah I just think like if you get 2 nights early, it's still like you still
Yeah,
scale it too cleanly. That's why I wanted a tier 3 card, right? So you can't get the too early
one's
for it.
kind of whatever,
Yeah,
right?
one
Like
is
one
whatever, yeah, but too
kind of
early
whatever.
it's
But
just like it's
a
like
pair of knights is very good. I agree with that. If you roll a pair of knights, that shit's so free. That
yeah,
scales way too
yeah,
fast.
it's too clean. So I would like it harder to, if you make it a tier 3, it's just harder to do. That's something
Okay,
all right. I think
good
that's
one.
it. Yeah. We actually
Yeah,
under 2 hours. Who would have thought?
good
Kind of
shit.
missed it.
Well
But
done, us.
yeah, pat on the back. Hopefully next one will be more meta focused. But we did cover a little bit of meta this week. But yeah, overall, rough day yesterday. We'll see how it feels. We like what if they change some things? Maybe they hear our feedback. Maybe
Copium.
they change some things.
Pass this man some copium. Yeah.
I know I'm sniffing it. I said I wasn't, but after the stream, I'm sniffing a little bit. No, but yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. Hopefully things look better in coming weeks.
Yeah.
Other than that, thank you guys for joining us here. We'll see you guys later. You can send us feedback at HSBG podcast at gmail.com. Find us on YouTube and Twitter and Twitch. Educated_Collins and Shady Bunny Live. Take care of yourselves. Hope you guys enjoyed it and have a wonderful, fantastic rest of the week.
See you guys.